polarization, a growing issue in the United States. What is political polarization? It is the extent to which individuals become ideologically entrenched in their own values and political beliefs, thereby increasing the divide with individuals with different values and political beliefs. In this graph developed by the Pew Research Center, we can see how political parties have shifted over a span of 20 years. The two lines in the graph represent, to the left, the median Democrat, and to the right, the median Republican. The purple portion indicates ideology maintained from both parties by an individual. Here we can observe that there's a little change between the two graphs between 1994 and 2004. However, there is an extreme difference between 2004 and 2014. Pew Research Center stated, in 1994, 94% of Republicans were more conservative than the median Democrat. In 2014, that percentage jumped to 92%. Similarly, in 1994, 70% of Democrats were more liberal than the median Republican. That number spiked to 94% in 2014. Why is polarization an issue and what is to blame? Humans influence each other's beliefs and ideas and tend to conform to ideology of those they closely associate with. Because of this, polarization increases bias when forming opinions and decreases amiable political discussion. And as we previously observed in the graph, it is an issue that is increasing in the United States. This garners the question, how does the way humans perceive and interact with each other enable polarization? There are many reasons as to why polarization has increased exponentially in the United States. However, there are two theories that arguably offer the best explanation that are centered around conformity in groups. Those are the tightness-looseness theory and self-categorization theory. Both gives an explanation as to how conformity influences polarization, how tensions between political parties has increased as they become separated largely by race and religion, and how the rise of partisan media catalyzes this issue as well. Tightness-looseness theory was developed by Michelle Gelfand, a psychology professor at Stanford University. This theory is based off the idea that every group has a set of norms and a set of consequences for deviation from those norms. She defines TL theory as the fact that some groups are tighter with stricter rules and harsher punishments for deviation from those rules, and others are looser with weaker rules and more tolerance for deviation. Gelfand discovered that there are varying degrees of tightness that are able to fluctuate based on norms or necessity to a group or culture. For example, Gelfand discovered that in the United States, each state had varying degree of tightness or looseness. She explained that compared to looser states, tight states had higher death rates owing to natural disasters, greater food insecurity, and more disease prevalence. So, states have become stricter and have higher punishment for breaking the laws as it is seen to do so for protection. The same is true not just for states, but for social groups as well. A group becomes stricter and unleashes harsher feelings for deviance in order to protect the group's values. So, threats cause a group to become more strict. Kimberly Rios Morrison, an associate professor of psychology at Ohio University, states that there's a significant amount of evidence that suggests threats initiate conformity to the in-group, or the group in which an individual closely identifies with, and causes further separation from the out-group, the group that initiates the perceived threat or has dissimilar beliefs. In one experiment conducted by Morrison, participants read a threatening message from an out-group, and those participants then clung more harshly to their culture and linguistic dialect than did those who read a non-threatening passage. The same mechanism is seen in political groups as well. And it is clear that in the United States, both political parties feel very threatened by one another. In the same study conducted by Pew Research Center, participants who expressed a strongly negative perspective of the opposing party were asked if they believed their policies were so misguided that they threatened the well-being of the nation. Among all Democrats, 27% say the Republican Party and their ideology was a threat to the well-being of the country. That figure is even higher among Republicans, 36% of whom believe Democratic policies threaten the nation. And in what category an individual places himself in matters as well. Taylor Carlson, an associate professor of psychology or political science at Washington University in St. Louis, argues that self-categorization theory is the key to in-group conformity is the key to in-group conformity and between-group polarization. Individuals are more likely to conform to the group in which they strongly associate themselves. Self-categorization has a conforming effect because aligning with the in-group members generates subject validity, the perception of certitude, whereas disagreeing with the group generates subject invalidity, the perception of fallacy. Therefore, opinions held by in-group members are naturally more persuasive, and this internal alignment has caused members of one political party to believe their ideology is correct, and that the ideology of the opposing party needs to be questioned. Because political parties in the United States have become separated largely by race and religion, the extent to which individuals associate with their party has only become stronger, which also generates a stronger sense of threat felt by the opposite party. Therefore, as tensions between political groups continue, individuals will adhere more strongly to their party's beliefs, allowing themselves to be more influenced by them as well. Thank you.
How did your research question evolve as you moved through the research process?
So initially I was just researching how conformity influences politics in the United States. And then I realized that there was not a lot of counter arguments to the fact that conformity does happen. So I then had to find what was the best argument that explained why that happened. And so I came across the statistics from the Pew Research Center, and it talked about polarization. So I realized that I could then add polarization into my argument, and that it assisted Michelle Gelfand's tightness-looseness theory because it talked about threats. And as we can see from the statistics, threats are felt by the political parties.
What additional questions emerged from your research? Why are these questions important?
I think a really good question that I thought of was what would happen if individuals were aware that this is what is driving them to make decisions. So there was a lot of studies in the different sources that I researched that talked about how they asked individuals political questions and how they changed their opinions based on what their peers thought as well, that conforming effect. So I'm wondering what would happen if they were then informed about conformity and polarization to see if that would influence their answer at all.